So now I'm going to pass it off to Maria Kozolka, the Executive Director of the FDP, to introduce the session.
Thank you very much, Sarah. So this is the final session. This is the committee report outs. What we've asked the co-chairs to do is to provide some of the main takeaways from their sessions and also next steps. So we'll start off with the Research Compliance Committee.
Thanks so much, Maria, and thanks to everyone who hosted sessions during this September virtual meeting. They were all excellent. I just wanted to take an opportunity to let folks know that there are a few volunteer opportunities with the Research Compliance Committee that will be upcoming. My name is Melissa Korf. I'm the Senior Director for Research Contracts, Data, and Security at Harvard Medical School, and I'm also the co-chair for FDP's Research Compliance Committee, which includes a number of wonderful subcommittees. If I hit the next slide, please. So the first opportunity we'll put upcoming is that we're sad to say that John Bauman has announced that he'll have to be stepping down from his role as co-chair of the Human Subjects Subcommittee. Many thanks to him for all of his wonderful contributions, both to the Human Subjects Subcommittee as well as the Research Compliance Committee overall. He waded into some things like, responsible conduct of research training and things like that, and has been a really wonderful contributor to the committee's work. This is a sort of a relatively recent development, so we're still working on pulling together a call for a volunteer to take on this leadership opportunity. But be on the lookout for that call. We anticipate sending it out to both the Research Compliance and the Human Subjects listserv. And then next slide, please. So as was announced at the May meeting, there have been some changes in leadership with the Data Stewardship and D2A Working Group as well. Diana Boglin and Chris McNitt, who had previously led the D2A Working Group, are now stepping into the Data Stewardship co-chair roles. And we offer many thanks to Chris Martin and Jen Welch, who made a number of contributions as the co-chairs for the Data Stewardship Committee for several years. They are also, as they're going through some of this transition, going to be releasing some calls for additional volunteers, both for the Data Stewardship Subcommittee as well as the D2A Working Group. So be on the lookout for those on the Data Stewardship or Data-L listserv, as well as the Research Compliance listserv. And then the last slide. So this is my friendly plug for joining the listservs. So if you want to be, in the know about these exciting volunteer opportunities and how to apply, and all of the wonderful work that's done by both the Research Compliance Committee and subcommittees, as well as all of the other wonderful committees at the FDP, join our listservs and contribute to part of the community and get those messages. And if you have any questions about the work of the committee or subcommittees and want to reach out to me directly, my contact information is here. So thanks so much. Back to you, Maria.
Thank you, Melissa. So our next update is the Foreign Influence Working Group, and I'll turn it over to Jim.
Thanks, Maria. Next slide. So we had this, Jim Luther from Yale University. I co-chair this working group with Pamela Webb from University of Minnesota. Our session Monday afternoon continued to have great participation from a lot of the federal partners. They're all noted at the bottom, but NIH, NSF, DOD, and Energy were all represented. And as you know, their level of commitment to this continued issue is, I think, 5 or 6 years strong. They continue to come to almost every meeting, and it's wonderful to have them share in so much detail, as well as provide Q&A and so forth. Pamela and I opened up with some updates. That's what's noted in the top left. The top 3, the research security programs, the NIH decision matrix, and the secure grant were all covered by the presenters. The last one was just noted by us as an important awareness item that Department of Justice is still involved in this space. And it's just something really critical to be aware of. Over on the top, on the right-hand side, the major takeaways, I think the first 2 bullets under the general items are probably the most important. There is significant activities underway by all the agencies, and it's going to be informed a lot by Congress. If you were paying attention in the news, the House Select Committee on the Chinese Communist Party had a series of meetings last week that they labeled China Week. That's about a lot of different issues, but inevitably they're still interested in a lot of the things that we're interested in. And as we know, with chips and science and many of those other types of things, many of those things filter down to the agencies and ultimately to us. So it's important to be aware of that. The second bullet is probably the most important thing on here, if there was one takeaway, and that is that there is a lot of desire by all of the agencies to continue to partner. They've done that a lot, and they continue to have strong desire to do that around the research security programs, around the risk assessment processes, around forms and so forth. So that's wonderful to hear. I'm not going to go through A through D. Most of this is in the slide deck that will be available, I guess, in the next couple of days. But lots of good discussion, lots of good Q&A, and Michelle Bowles in particular, but all of the agencies were very interested in us following up on some of the questions and providing feedback. So we are collecting the Q&A, providing it to the agencies, and again, we'll make that publicly available. And then lastly, on the bottom left, I noted that NSF does want your input on the training modules. I brought that up because I received that email and didn't know if it was a real email because it did not come from NSF. It's real. They want your input. If you get it, please take the time. I think it only takes 10 minutes or so to do the survey. So I highly encourage you to do that. And then again, FIG will be working with RSS to likely have some discussions kind of off cycle from a meeting in the next couple of months related to the implementation of the research security programs. So thank you for your time.
Thanks, Jim. The next update is CUSP, and CUSP is the Compliance Unit Standard Protocol. Aubrey, turning it over to you.
Thanks, Maria. Next slide, please. So the big, I guess, news for the CUSP working group was that we completed the pilot phase of testing in August. So that was a big milestone for us. We're all very excited. Overall, we got very positive results from our pilot testing. The data supported that we've developed a system that's very user-friendly and intuitive to use. And that the help documentation that's been developed is considered a useful resource by those that are using it. So that was really, really positive. Our steering committee is now focused on combing through all the feedback that we received during this phase of the project and identifying kind of appropriate solutions and next steps for all of that feedback. We do anticipate rolling the site out to the larger FDP community by the end of the year. So we're still working on details and plans for that, but once that's finalized, we'll definitely share that out to the wider community. So I guess keep your eyes peeled for that information coming. And then I'll just do a little plug for volunteer opportunities. Our help desk team, education and outreach team, and quality control teams are all seeking volunteers. If you'd like to join, we'd be happy to have you. You could reach out to us at cusp@thefdp.org. Thank you.
Thank you, Aubrey. The next update is the Subawards Subcommittee.
Hi, everyone. So I'm going to go over a couple updates and then hand it over to Stuart to close. Stuart's one of our 3 new co-chairs that joined in May. Maggie, Jennifer, and Stuart, as you can see on the slide, were all present at the May session and are now kind of fully on board and taking over as co-chairs of the subcommittee. And this is my last meeting as a co-chair of the Subawards Subcommittee, but I'm going to remain involved as previous co-chairs have to help make sure there's some institutional knowledge and proper turnover and continuity of the work. We're looking good with our subcommittee of just over 20 active participants meeting on a quarterly basis, which gives us the opportunity to dive deep into subaward topics in between these triannual meetings. And that's just a great group to work with, and I appreciate everyone volunteering for that. and actively participating. So as far as co-chairs and the subcommittee go, we're all set with volunteers, but there will be certainly some new working groups coming up in the very near future that Stuart and I are going to talk about in a second, or at least talk about the topics that are going to lead to more working groups. If you want to contact the subawards subcommittee co-chairs only, email subawards@thefdp.org. And if you have a question for the broader community, then please reach out to the listserv. Okay, so major takeaways from this session. Our two most important tools are the FAQ and guidance document that we maintain and the templates and samples. The version 9 of the FAQ document was posted to the FDP website yesterday. So thank you very much to the communications committee and the FDP website team for getting that posted. So if you work on subawards, please go get version 9, or at least start consulting version 9 of the FAQs on the subawards part of the FDP webpage. The templates, we're almost done with our work, but we're still waiting to see what the impacts of the UG updates on October 1st are going to be before we finalize and post those. And one thing in particular we need to look at is how we address and reference the research terms and conditions, which is a key component of our subaward templates right now in flowing down federal regulations. But that is going to change with the way research terms and conditions are archived and no longer applying to awards made on or after October 1st. So we need to wait a little bit longer before we post the templates. So I'll turn it over to Stuart to close with the final 3 points.
Thanks, Kevin. So regarding notice 23-182, we just as a group discussed our successes and challenges with implementing this. We also discussed NIH touching base regarding compliance with this additional subaward clause, whether or not the Institute had asked for an extension or not. And in some cases, NIH has reached out, and in some cases they haven't. No one has reported NIH, digging deeper and actually verifying what that access looks like as of yet. And we shelved this for later discussion as needed based on, other institutes' experience or interest in revisiting it. For the second one, we talked about the appropriateness or not appropriate of adding language to our subawards regarding their own institute PI senior key personnel compliance with the new maligned foreign talent recruitment program. There was no consensus that we came to about whether adding that clause was appropriate or not, with some institutions saying yes, some institutions saying no. We discussed other avenues for ensuring the compliance of participating subawards at the pre-award stage, for example, in the OS page, adding that as part of the PI certification, or in subrecipient commitment forms. And lastly, I would say we discussed how we inconsistently address the DMSP and subawards. We talked about whether or not, first, whether we thought that our institutions, that subrecipients were being brought into the process at the pre-award proposal phase, and we were not able to come to a consensus as to whether that was happening on a consistent basis. And then are we, and it was the case, we based on a poll we did, we are not consistently and adding the DMSP to our subawards, and we discussed whether we actually should, and whether that should be kind of a nudge on the FDP template to add the DMSP, especially because it's part of the flow down terms and conditions in the NOAA.
All right, thanks for that update. The next group that is up is the contracts subcommittee.
Yes, good afternoon. So I'm Katie Cook. I'm the Executive Director of Sponsor Programs at Michigan State University, and I'm one of 3 co-chairs. My other co-chairs is Janet Hannum Hayes from Emory University and Missy Peloso from University of Pennsylvania. Can go. Yep, thank you. Next slide. So we were really lucky. We had Diane Sidebottom join us for our contract subcommittee session. Diane is the ARPA-H head of contracting authority, and she presented on other transactions. Unfortunately, our session ran a little long and it was cut off, so we didn't have time for all the questions. However, we'll try to get some of those questions back out to the listserv so that people can see some answers on those. But she did an excellent job on providing a lot of information on other transactions, the history behind them, and we're hoping to have her back and potentially work with us on kind of being the expert in this area to push some of our initiatives forward, because we do have a working group in this area. The contract subcommittee, also just as a quick side note, we do have about 26 members that are working on 5 different working groups and joining us for meetings. And so we're working through a lot of different issues. And we'll talk about volunteer pieces in a little bit. But some of the take-home items regarding Diane's presentation, for those that are interested in other transaction agreements or deal with them at their university, is that they're not necessarily faster to negotiate. So a lot of people or a lot of federal representatives will say, hey, let's use the OT because, you know, we can negotiate quicker and it moves a little bit more streamlined. And that sometimes is not the case. So she kind of noted through there. And with that in mind, there's a slide within her deck that she goes through what OTs are and what they're not. And so I thought that was pretty informative. So we'll be sharing those slides and getting that out to the community. The other pieces is that contracting officers or agreement officers we're noticing more and more are just sticking in FAR clauses and calling it other transaction agreements or putting in the exact FAR, when I say FAR, is Federal Acquisition Regulation language within the actual contract unmodified. And so she did say to talk with the contracting officer or agreement officer regarding that, mainly to sanitize, to remove the reference of the FAR clause and or change the language, modify the language to make it specific to the program, because there is times where sometimes that regulation is specific to the program or it would be super useful for the program. So there are times to utilize it, but it needs to be modified. So I thought that was good information. She talked about IP terms being difficult to negotiate, and that's not going to go away with an OT. And so making sure the expertise on both sides is there. And then I'm going to skip to 6 real quick. So financial reporting terms are negotiable in OTs, and I think sometimes they're told we're not, but they're actually specific per program. So to understand that, you know, those can be discussed and negotiated. And then ARPA-H stuff. So going back to 5, ARPA-H does mainly use other transaction, their authority for other transactions to fund projects. They will sometimes utilize cooperative agreements, but mainly use OTs. But it is up to that contracting officer or agreement officer to determine the mechanism in which the project's funded. And so that's where that authority lies. They also have, I thought, I was not aware of this, but ARPA-H, and maybe many that do work with ARPA-H closely, they have a community page that is super useful. It's got a ton of information on it. And in the beginning of July, they posted the common terms for their OTAs on that page. And so you can check that out if you are doing a lot of other transaction agreements with ARPA-H. And they're also doing, and Diane had plugged the Doing Business with ARPA-H Industry Day on November 13th for those of you who do a lot of business there. And you can find that when these slides are released. For contract subcommittee, if you are interested in volunteering or are interested in the 5 working groups, which is posted on our website, we'd be happy to chat with you. You're welcome to email myself, Janet, or Missy. I think that is the fast wrap up.
All right, thanks for that update. The next group that is up is the Research Security Subcommittee.
Thank you, Maria. Thought I would just outline some of the major updates actually for all year, because we continue to work on some of these areas. So the NSPM 33 NSF security training modules was an area that we were involved in the January meeting. And the RSS demonstration, it was a webinar in March. It was International Collaboration and Agreement Assessment Tools. And finally, the NSF proposal review process, which is trust. So those are some of the areas we continue to work in those areas. So some major takeaways from the committee session this week, it was the Secure Center. And I guess I'll just outline some of the main points, which is to foster international research collaborations while ensuring and enhancing security. Shared components, novel tools and security alerts, community knowledge. I think we're all interested in seeing how this will all work out at the end of the day. The structure includes national, regional, and functional areas. There's 5 regional centers. There's the Northeast, the Southeast, the Midwest, the Southwest, and the West. Also, the center will provide expert areas for sensitive and high-risk research areas. It's also going to provide value areas to address equitable access, small and medium businesses, burden reduction, supporting research security process, and there's a number of other value areas. Also, which was very interesting, is the secure analytics, which is also a part of this process here. And it's an independent affiliate center providing analytics expertise to the overall secure initiative. It's a partnership between Texas A&M, the Hoover Institution, and Parallax Advanced Research. I would say for volunteer opportunities based on the Secure Center is to get engaged, and to your region, you can either contact me or you can contact the Secure Center. That's what I have, Maria.
All right, thank you, Doug. Appreciate that. All right, the next is the FAFATA working group, and I think you'll just be addressing the group verbally.
Yes, I'm Matthew Ross with Ole Miss. Carmen, are you on here?
I'm here. Go ahead.
All right. We are a new working group we formed this summer. We've only met 4 times, and we realized pretty quickly that we're doing something that no 2 institutions do the same way. That's the FAFATA reporting on FSRS. And we formed because the data that flows from FSRS into USA spending is, well, it's not that good. It's unreliable, it's incorrect, and we are formed to fix that. So we have worked through things with the working group. We've identified a number of things to do, such as a working glossary of definitions. I get some training materials on how to do certain things, and we're digging into some poll results from our current session from yesterday to see how we can buttress that and what the community itself is really interested in getting. Because the overall result is to get the data in USA spending so it can actually be used the way it needs to be used. We know that FSRS will be either updated / modified or completely redone on a new system at some point. And our ultimate goal is to be part of that discussion when it happens. We just really want to see at the table for it. Maybe we can get it to where it's an easier tool for everybody to use. But until that time happens, we're trying to make things easier for everybody and reduce the administrative burden. Carmen, do you have anything to add?
We were very pleased by all of the participation that we received during our session. Like Matt said, we're a brand new group, so we weren't sure how much engagement we would get during our session, but we got quite a lot. And we even solicited new working group members out of our session yesterday, so we will add them to the fold. And we're in a really good space, I think, for dividing out some of these big priorities that we have identified. And when we come back for the fall meeting, we will have more updates and we'll just be able to hit the ground running. So I feel like we were very successful for this being our first foray into FDP as a new working group. And you will definitely be receiving more updates from us as we progress.
Well, thank you for that update and congratulations on your first success. We look forward to hearing more.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. The next group is the Expanded Clearinghouse.
Hi, everyone. I am sharing the report out from our subcommittee on behalf of my co-chairs, Robert and Jennifer. I believe we have a slide, right? There we go. Okay. So during our session, we shared several updates and key takeaways. First, we highlighted some changes to our subcommittee membership. We've had a couple of members who are no longer part of the subcommittee, so we honored their contributions. And then additionally, we introduced several new members who will be serving as profile reviewers. We also shared information related to the plan to switch to one invitation per year to non-FDP member participants for them to join the clearinghouse. This is a change. In recent years, we've been doing 2 invitations per year. And in the early years, when we first started the clearinghouse, we did 4. So switching to 1 per year is both a reaction to kind of the natural dwindling of interested additional participants as we've onboarded quite a lot over the years, and then also just an attempt hopefully to streamline the process a little bit. Maria's nodding her head because she's very much involved in that process as we collect the payments and invoice and everything. So hopefully the one time a year will make this a little bit easier on everyone involved. The next round of invitations will be issued in June or July of this coming year, 2025. That will give us time to onboard new participants by January of 2026, when their payment would officially be considered for that 2026 year. And then just a quick update on our numbers. We currently have 364 participating organizations and several more coming in the next few months from our last invitation that we did this year. So quite a lot of interest continues to be around joining the FDP clearinghouse, and we welcome all of those interested entities. The clearinghouse itself was updated this past summer to validate that the person doing a profile update has responded to the new COI questions. With the exception of the FAR 9.5 question, we understand that institutions may still need some time to figure out how or if they can answer that question. But those COI questions tend to still spark some discussion in our meeting, in our session, and gives us an opportunity to continue to collaborate with the COI subcommittee. So we look forward to future discussions around those. The subrecipient monitoring tools working group that is a part of our subcommittee provided several updates. They have recently finished an extensive review of the risk assessment questionnaire, otherwise known as the RAC, and the corresponding guidance that goes with that. They are pleased to announce that this revised tool will soon be available for use. So if that's something that interests you, keep an eye out on the website and watch for an announcement coming out on the listserv. Additionally, they just provided a quick update that on the non-single audit profile or NSAP pilot. The preparation activities are ongoing for that working group and continue to progress, or that part of the working group. The last thing, we spent the last bit of the session just with some open discussion around possible additions or removals from the fields that are currently available in the clearinghouse. There was some good feedback there, and we'll continue that discussion in the coming year.
Well, thank you,
Thank
Amanda,
you.
for that update. And on a personal note, I just want to thank you for streamlining efforts for reducing administrative burden for our own organization. That really appreciate that.
Yes. Absolutely.
Thank you. Next group is the RSTC.
Great, thank you, Maria. And I know I sent my slide in late because we had a later session. We had a really great conversation today, a session with 2 different topics. We had the CIO of the National Science Foundation come to talk about how the NSF is engaging in AI topics in the research enterprise. And one of the things that we would like to do is potentially plan a series of these conversations with our federal partners, pending some conversations with our exec committee, because it was pretty well received with a lot of questions questions and a lot of engagement during his part of the session. We also had a session on Science EV. Our major update since May of 2024 is that it's almost a 1-year anniversary of the NSF using Science EV for the BioSketch and current and pending support, which is great news. Bart managed to sort of count up the number of pages that would be done otherwise, and it was over 750,000 documents over the past 11 months. So that just shows the sort of impact and reach that Science EV has, even for just a couple of sponsors and one that requires it. Some of the major takeaways from our session this week is that obviously the NIH for Science EV will be coming in 2025. And Bart did let us know that they're not the only ones that are coming down the pike. The Science EV team is working on agreements with other federal agencies that we'll hear about once the agreement is signed. So stay tuned on that. It's encouraging news. They are also working on enhancements and on an API for institutions to use to load data into Science EV. And one of the things that we are thinking about for the RSTC and volunteer opportunities is how we use the RSTC to talk about topics about AI in research administration, technology and privacy and data around the folks that are interested in that topic, because it's hot everywhere. I seem to be talking about AI nearly every week. And so David Saunders and I were thinking that the RSTC might be a really good place to have some of these conversations, as well as invite people to speak at coming meetings or have other series of conversations so that the FDP can be involved there. And one of the things that came up out of the NSF conversation with the CIO is that NSF in particular is working on pilot things that are relevant to our community. And so there could be opportunities there for us to be testers of the things that they're doing. And I wouldn't be surprised if other agencies have similar scenarios. So David and I are going to follow up on that, and we will send out information as we have it, particularly when there are opportunities for volunteers from the FDP membership. And that's all for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Lori. That sounds really exciting, and especially to be at the forefront of technology. So thank you for that update. Next group is the conflict of interest.
Hi, I'm Lindsay Spengler with Duke University. I'm going to present our committee updates on behalf of myself and April Pepperdine, my co-chair. Next slide. So interestingly, I did have updates to the expanded clearinghouse COI questions on as one of our accomplishments, but it sounds like there are still questions coming up. So we will work together a bit more to make that clear. We tried to change it so that it was clear people didn't need to have an explicit policy, but rather generally can comply with the FAR 9.5. But we will continue to try and tweak that to make that more clear. We also had our COI survey that was sent out, and results are reported at this meeting. This survey talked through all the different kinds, anything you could think of really with the COI process, how many forms are processed, how many FTEs you have, what system you use, what you require for the disclosure, how you connect the dots, so to speak. So I felt like it was a really helpful survey for particularly COI central offices. April is almost finished with the COI management plan compendium. This will be posted very soon. I think she's just getting sort of some of the final layout and little tweaks made before it gets posted. Let's see, we also have a couple of ongoing work groups, including one that if anyone is particularly interested or knowledgeable about organizational COI and ARPA-H or ARPA-E projects, please reach out to April. I've put her email address in the bottom left. I know that a lot of our COI groups are struggling because they don't necessarily own organizational conflict of interest. But everyone looks to us because it says COI. So if you are getting a lot of ARPA-H, ARPA-E, or you have a lot of those funding, those funded projects and want to participate in a work group, please reach out to April. We also have an ongoing work group working with Research Security Subcommittee and our federal partners to establish a risk mitigation template and or best practices document which should be particularly helpful for those institutions who will have to do a risk mitigation plan for one of their personnel or projects. And they've not had to do it before. That way they won't be reinventing the wheel. I think those are all the updates for me.
Great, thank you. So now we'll turn it over to FACT.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Joan Sear, Director of Research Operations and Systems at Northeastern University, and the co-chair of the Faculty Administrative Collaboration Team, along with the chair, Steve Post. Today we had a really good presentation with not only Steve moderating, but Mark Hasselborn, who, as you know, is also the lead of the Secure Project, Lori Schultz, Carmen Schultz, and David Dreisbach. Basically, since our May meeting, the three groups that I just mentioned, FACT, OG RAD, and RSTC, we joined forces to look for ways to optimize the research profile management across multiple digital touch points. As many of you saw, we created a study charter for researcher profile optimization, which I'll talk about in a little bit. We discussed about the three basic principles when you look at this type of work that comes through the notice of awards. You know, change always produces burden. Burden doesn't go away by itself. And if nobody takes action, the last person in the relay race is going to be holding it. And that's usually the faculty member. So the best way to address this is for all of the stakeholders to gather at the onset of the change. And that starts with the funding agencies, determining the best way to reduce the associated burden and then actually do it. So as we mentioned, you know, when we have these additional burdens, it's easier on the community to share that burden. It benefits everyone, and it increases the likelihood that when the time comes, we're not going to have exacerbated faculty members like Carmen was holding that last baton. And her hair's on fire, I think she described it. She'll actually buy into the change. As we've already heard, the Secure Center is starting. It's going to build and implement what the community identifies and prioritizes. We also heard about how ORCID and ScienceCV are working to reduce burden associated with researcher profiles. You know, with various systems that are in play for faculty to navigate, and you have uneven resources across institutions. It's best to sort of focus on user-centered design and experience. We talked about the researcher profile optimization study that we are going to be presenting. It's hopefully going to provide some insights to optimize management of that information across the digital touch points. And I believe we're going to be submitting a proposal to the FDP Executive Committee for approval that will likely take about, the study itself will likely take about 18 months. So if you have any feedback for FACT, you can contact either myself or the chair, Steve Post. If you'd like to participate in the study, if it gets approved, contact the study co-chairs, Carmen and David. And of course, FACT is always looking for research administrator and faculty pairs to join and participate with FACT. And that's our recap.
All right. Everyone. Thank you, Joan. Next update is the Finance Auditing and Costing Committee update.
Thanks, Maria. Hi, everyone. My name is Christy Keene, Senior Director of Research Finance at the University of Chicago. Along with my co-chair, Michelle Bowles, we are leading up the Finance Audit and Costing Committee. And with a heavy emphasis on audit lately. The audit group has been reviewing findings from audits by federal agencies, OIGs, and trying to proactively identify potential areas where there might be new requirements coming and to work with those federal agency reps to reduce administrative burden. Major takeaways from just a couple hours ago is the audit group is monitoring those OIG audit roadmaps, the work plans, and the findings reports to see if there's any kind of common denominators throughout those findings. Additionally, I think with a lot of enthusiasm, they are working on developing a framework for an audit support group. And this is intended to act as a resource. So when you are called upon for an audit, you might have a group that could lend some guidance or some advice based on maybe what your institution looks like, who's conducting the audit, that sort of thing. So if you are a seasoned audit recipient and want to get involved, you can reach out to Alicia or Mario. Their contact information is there. And Michelle provided an update that NIH completed a retrospective review of 396 single audits. That's been since May of this year. And of those, 59 were identified for follow-up on their corrective action plan, and 49 have been cleared. So a lot of progress in a short period of time. And if you want to get involved, you can reach out to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Christy. Appreciate that update. The next update is the Faculty Steering Committee.
Hello. So I guess the Faculty Steering Committee is a subset of the Faculty Committee. The Faculty Committee meets here at the FDP as a committee of the whole. And as you know, the faculty work across all of the different organizations at the FDP. So we use the steering committee to keep track of what those activities are. And that committee meets in between meetings just to learn about what the activities are. Here at this meeting, we've been heavily involved in the planning, obviously, for this meeting, including the plenary sessions. And we've concurrently engaged this meeting. And many of the faculty were actually part of the National Academy session on assessing research security efforts in higher education, a meeting of the experts that was going on concurrently with this, reflecting the large amount of work being done in the research security space by many of our steering committee and faculty members around the FDP. Our business meeting, we focused on continuing to move forward with the faculty workload survey implementation. We hope to have an RFP available for firms to respond to sometime this fall, and we are, at least our hope is to be on track to implement that survey next year. Right now, the working group associated with the workload survey is meeting to review the prior survey questions and to make sure that we have a cleaned up version of that to share as a basis for moving forward on that project. We also discussed the co-chair selection process at our meeting yesterday, and that will begin this fall with a message to faculty members around the nomination procedure. In our next meeting of the faculty business, which will be a faculty-only business meeting, we'll actually listen to candidates so that they can present their vision for how they'd like to run the faculty committee moving forward. And a big topic for us today, as always, is that we just don't have enough faculty members that are representatives from institutions. I would remind everybody that you do have the documents that the membership committee put together, as well as FACT putting together around how to select a faculty representative from your institutions, but particularly in this moment of time as Secure is going to stretch this organization and really dig into the leadership availability. We really need to think about how we're going to find additional representatives to help us accomplish the business that we need to accomplish on behalf of the FDP. So that was what we talked about in our business meeting. And for volunteers, of course, for us, it's really all about finding members from your respective institutions, because we still lack lots of faculty reps. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. And our last update is from OGRAD.
Hello, everyone. I'm Rick Wenger from the University of Washington, representing my other two co-chairs, Avi from NSF and Stephanie from Brown. Next slide. Plug for the website. We are a subcommittee underneath the RA committee, so you can find us underneath that. But at the link, you will find our background and why we exist and what we're trying to accomplish, which is basically collect evidence through data around basic business processes to demonstrate some of the burden that's been expressed or workload challenges and illuminate those challenges or defeat some of the folklore around some of those challenges. We have two efforts currently underway. We have the FDP HERD survey, which is digging into the survey itself to understand the data that's collected, the quality of the data, and how that data is used. That group is underway. Work group's been assembled and they have created a draft of the survey that they want to submit. They're doing a really great job as far as the discussion to understand what the survey is made of and how it supports, further analysis, and also understand the difficulty of collecting the data across different sizes of institutions and that sort of thing. So it's just a great effort that is very much underway. And their timeline suggests that they're looking to wrap up the draft survey, which I saw just last week, and it looks really good, but to distribute it sometime in November and then close it out by March. So meaning collect all the feedback by March of next year. The second effort is the Research Profile Optimization Study, or the RPOS, where in our last session, we were asking folks to understand the burden around managing profiles for PIs across multiple systems and some of the challenges within. Great job of demonstrating that use case. I would point you to the charter, which is currently linked at our subcommittee website, and review the charter to understand what it's all about, understand that it's got a few dimensions to it, consider participating. This effort is kind of at the starting line. A few people have mentioned that we're waiting to get certification or authorization to move forward. So we're at the starting line and waiting for that. And then you can look at how you might want to participate. There's a couple different facets to it, but including the survey development and then the survey analysis and that sort of thing. So both groups have their representation here over on the left. So if you want to contact Angie or Jen to get involved in the HERD survey, or if you want to contact David or Carmen for the RPOS, please do that. If you'd like to get involved in OGRAD, please contact me, or the listserv is also out on our website as well. And thank you all.
Well, thank you for that update. Just want to say thank you to everyone for pulling together this exciting meeting. I know it's a lot of hard work and it takes, all of your volunteer efforts, and thank you to everyone who has tuned in. I'm going to ask Alex or Michelle if they want to just close out the meeting, if you have any additional comments.
Yeah, I just wanted to echo the thanks to everybody on all of the committees and working groups for all your continuing efforts, sitting in on the sessions. I'm always just amazed at the amount of work that such a large group of volunteers are able to accomplish. And, also to all of our attendees, there was a lot of lively discussions, a lot of interest and engagement. And hopefully, if you heard anything that piqued your interest, please feel free to reach out to that committee. We're always looking for more volunteers. And then also, just as an aside, a few people of our committee speakers did remind you about their listservs. You are not automatically enrolled in listservs. So if there's specific areas that really you want to follow and get involved in, be sure to go to our website and sign yourself up for that listserv. And then I just want to say thanks again, and hopefully see you in January. Michelle?
Thank you, Alex, and thank you, Maria. I echo what both of you have said. I think this has been a fabulous meeting, and really appreciate the time and dedication of everyone involved in planning this meeting and everyone involved in presenting and attending. We look forward to tracking all of these wonderful activities as they evolve, and to seeing everyone again in January. And so I think with that, we are adjourned.
And thank you, Sarah. Always
and thank you, Sarah. Always.
Yes,
Thanks,
always.
everybody.
Thank you,
Take
Sarah.
care.
All right. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Hey, Sarah. Are you here?